Rocky Digati is a paranormal investigator, author, and educator. She has written several books on the history and mystery of haunted places and loves sharing her stories, such as interviewing the famous vampire of Rhode Island, Mercy Brown, and a whole lot more. And she has a very special friend we'll hear more about too. Rocky, come on in.
Well, hey, Miss Amber.
Hello there, Rocky. All right, first, how did you start getting involved in the paranormal?
Well, I grew up in a very old world atmosphere, and I hate to correct you on the thing. I've only written one book on history and mystery, but I have, and Mercy Brown died in I think it was 1896. But
Okay,
I've
so you
done.
didn't interview her.
I
Okay.
did not interview her. Well, there's always the ghost box, so we could always
Yes.
try it sometime. But I grew up in New England. I'm originally from Rhode Island, from a little town called Bristol, Rhode Island. And it's a peninsula in the middle of Narragansett Bay, settled in 1680. So history was all around me. It actually came in through the history of the area that I lived in. And I was a very curious person. And as a kid, and I was lucky, my dad was a teacher. So my dad was an art teacher, and he was always interested in history and things. Unfortunately, like a lot of folks, I was very much bullied as a kid. And the one place the bullies would not go was in the cemetery. So I would dodge into these little old New England slate with the skulls on the gravestone cemeteries. And those were my refuge. And I would start reading the stones. I would ask questions because I'd see a name on the stone that maybe had the same name as my school or something. And I started learning about the town's history. And my dad took me down the town hall, and I got to read those moldy books that smell like sweat socks. And, it was great to get kind of like hands-on history. I'm very lucky to have had a very involved mentor in that area. So it started in the graveyards as my refuge, and to this day, I find them a place of peace and solace, and something that should be preserved. So I think that was part of it. I had a lot of old world influence. The area I'm from has a lot of immigrants from Italy and Portugal. And I'm a blended immigrant family from Italy and Portugal. And, so and my grandmother from the Portuguese side, she was a curandera. So that means like she was, well, we called her a witch doctor, but I don't think she was too crazy about that. And, so we had herbal cures. We had a lot of that mysterious old world stuff was going on in our house. So we had a little taste of it, and my curiosity never waned.
And what did you do with it? You went to school? Did you go to college?
I did go to college, but I didn't go to college for anything nearly that interesting. I currently work in the IT field by day because I enjoy indoor plumbing and keeping the lights on. But my passions, I studied technical writing, and I worked as a 911 EMT for many, many years. And I now, like I said, I work in IT. I ride a desk. But, it's always been there. The creative force has always been there. The interest and the curiosity in science and the paranormal has always been there.
What does a paranormal investigator do?
They sit around a lot, and I'll tell you why. Paranormal investigations, talking about some of the TV shows that are very, very popular now. We have some that are paranormal caught on camera. We have the Ghost Hunters is the one that most people, I think, are familiar with, Jason Hawes. Funny thing, a million years ago, back in the Paleolithic age, I joined a paranormal group in Rhode Island. And at one point when I was getting ready to leave the state, the leader of the group said, they're thinking of doing a TV show. We're talking to somebody about that. And I said, oh, that's really cool. I wish you guys some great luck with that. And as I'm driving home, I'm like, that's never going to happen. So I actually told Jay that the last time I saw him. I've known Jay Hawes and Steve Gonsalves for 20 plus years, and Carl Johnson and the Demon Twins, as I call them, Carl and Keith Johnson. I made some wonderful friends, and I learned about paranormal investigating. So if you watch the shows, most of it is hurry up and wait. You just sit around. But paranormal investigators are observers and recorders. The idea is you're looking for proof. You're looking to capture something. And stories are great when they always tend to come from like a friend of a friend, or, I call that the FOF, friend of a friend, and it's all, but when you have the experience and when you can record and, and corroborate that experience, that's when it really becomes a true investigation. And then you end up spending hours listening for any little thing on recordings, and it can be very tedious. It's far more tedious than the TV would have you admit.
All right. Now tell me about Henry.
Henry, I guess I would say he's my roommate. Technically, I'm his guest, I feel. I live in a very old house in a little town in South New Jersey that is from 1851. And the previous occupant was a gentleman named Henry. And Henry lived here with his partner. And at one point in time, also operated a bed and breakfast next door in one of the larger Victorian homes. It's a downtown area. It's got a lot of little shops and things. And when I first moved here in September of 2017, the first few nights alone in the house, I sensed something. The minute I saw the house, I fell in love with it. In fact, I wasn't even sure I could afford it. Turns out I could, and I was all excited. So I'm moving in, and I'm hearing footsteps in the other room, kind of. And I got a bit of a spidey sense. I wouldn't say I'm certainly not a medium. I think we can all agree I'm more like an extra large. But I was hearing all these footsteps. And this is one of those old houses. You can't sneak up on anybody in this house because all the floors creak. If you were to put a handful of pinballs in my living room, they go to the four corners of the earth. So, I started hearing that. And then I was saying, well, okay, I don't feel anything that makes me feel bad. I just feel like I'm not alone. And I'm sort of like trying to tune in a little bit, and I'm talking, hey, hi, I love this house, and I started nesting as you do, and I'm making things for the house, and I'm many things, but a seamstress is not one of them. But I'm trying to I got some cheap fabric at Joann's, and I'm trying to monkey around with my sewing machine and all. And it was funny. I really felt like there was somebody over my shoulder laughing because I'm just sitting there going, I'm having my Fred Flintstone swearing because the bobbin. I think we can all agree the bobbin is from hell. So, I'm trying to get all this done, and I'm really feeling this. As time went on and I got to know my neighbors, I had said something about sewing to the lady next door, and she goes, "Oh, Henry used to come and help me sew all the time." I said, "Really?" I said, tell me more about that. She, "Oh, yes, yeah, he did. He used to make, he was a puppeteer and an artist, and he made marionettes. And of course, in addition to making he would sew all the clothes. So whenever she had a project and got stuck, he would go over and help. By all accounts, from both neighbors on both sides, as well as other people in the community, I would have very much relished having Henry as a friend in the corporal world, in the real life. He sounds like a delight. And the only reason I knew that he was gay is because folks had talked about his partner and whatnot. And I don't think had a partner at the time that he died, but he did at one time because he lived here for quite some time. He lived here almost 30 years. So this was his home, and he loved this house. So I started learning a little bit more about him. And you found the picture that folks saw is because I found him on Facebook. I found his old account, and there were pictures on Facebook of areas in this house that were beautifully and very detailed, decorated for Christmas. Looked like he was a big fan of Christmas. And that's the built-in the corner of the dining room. And I believe he made the nutcrackers that you see up top. And I still have that Tiffany lamp too. And it's just, his taste was impeccable. And I think his artistry was absolutely. And yeah, it's Christmas kitschy. Sorry, Hen. You know how I feel about that. So, I think the one thing that probably breaks his heart is I don't really decorate for Christmas. But I got you on Halloween, man. I got that going on. But, it was interesting learning a little bit about him. And when I was kind of really, really glad to hear how many people enjoyed him. Because he sounds, at all accounts, like I said, a terrific human, someone I would have loved to have known. And we have a very inclusive church that's across the street, an Episcopal church. And the pastor and her wife were telling me that they were good friends with him. And when I told them, I got comfortable enough to tell them, I think something's going on in my house. And they're like, oh, that's totally him. Just that's him. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Have you had contact other than feeling him there?
I have. I have not had an exchange as in, the call and response or anything like that. But I have had contact. One of the most dramatic contacts. Now, it's very rare that people feel being touched. I mean, maybe a brush by or something like that, but actual physical contact. I was first. I should probably preface this. I'm a klutz. I'm a terrible klutz. I trip over lint in the carpet. It's terrible. So I'm a very awkward land mammal, and I was at the top of the stairs as one does, pretty much betting the odds, carrying a load of laundry and wearing flip flops. I think we all smell that one coming. And I did trip at the top of the stairs. And it was funny, and it happened so quickly. I was suddenly sitting on the top step, like somebody had yanked me back hard. Had I and my laundry basket went, over tea kettle down a full flight of stairs, which would have been me, had I not been somehow, and believe you me, we can't say that my balance did that. Not this kid. So, I do feel that I did, it actually felt like somebody just grabbed me and went, whoa, don't fall. And there have been there have been gifts and kindnesses that have been marked.
Such as?
Well, the hutch that you saw in the dining room was 100% empty when I took over the house. And I have things just so in there. Of course, my version of it is a little bit more grim. And it looks sort of like a death nerd and an alcoholic started using that because that's where I keep the booze, where I keep the glasses and the skull stuff. So I was walking by, and I'm one of those that it's a little bit avant-garde, but I know where everything is. And I was walking by, and I saw something kind of askew, and I look in there, and there was a shot glass on its side. Not really a shot glass collector. I'd never seen this glass before. And it was one of those glasses you'd get at a souvenir shop, and it said, Henry's Bar, South Beach. And I was like, no way. And I even showed like other people. I said, like, you were in here. You helped me putting away dishes on Thanksgiving. This came literally out of nowhere. So now it's a tradition when folks gather that we pour a little something, something in the shot glass, and we always toast and include Henry.
Wow. Any other signs?
Sure. Kindnesses. I had, unfortunately, I lost him. I had a beautiful dog. I had a dog named Dino, and he was a 150-pound Rottweiler. He was a rescue. And he was the sweetest big doofy bunny that ever lived. And I miss that dog to this day. Dino was one for, he had like his chair that he liked. But sometimes I would catch him laying down with his feet, and the leg would be moving like somebody was scratching at him and rubbing his tongue. He would go up into belly up, and he'd be like, oh yeah, like somebody was rubbing him. And I'd notice that he would notice things. But the most hilarious of the kindnesses has to be sweeping up. I was vacuuming, and it's happened on more than one occasion. And I'm going around, I got my route. I've been accused of recreational vacuuming. So, but I got my route, and I came around my route. I went around the coffee table, and literally in the space it would take to walk around a large coffee table. As I came around, all of a sudden in the middle of my path where I had just vacuumed was a giant pile of dog hair, like it had been swept in from the corners. And I was like, the vents aren't on, the heat's not on. No idea how that, and I did kind of think that was quirky. And I kind of said, well, and I thanked Henry. It's like, if you did that, that was really a big help, because that's nasty allergens. Let's get that up. It's happened more than one time. That's a regular thing now. At least, once or twice every couple of months, I'll end up with a pile of dirt right where I just vacuumed, as if to say you missed some.
What would you like to happen with Henry, you and Henry?
I would love for Henry to be welcomed. I feel funny saying it that way, because this is his house. I would love to continue to be welcomed by Henry in this beautiful, beautiful home, which I've grown to truly love and make my own in my way. And I feel that part of making it my own is embracing Henry and his beautiful history. And he, I can tell it's a wonderful thing. I can tell we would have had a good time had we known each other. And I say, well, we can have as good of a time as we can now. I would love
Has
to
anyone,
stay.
has any of your visitors or friends acknowledged Henry in any way?
He has made himself a presence to several friends. A lot of like when the girls come over, he loves that. Loves that. Comes right in and he's dishing with the rest. I think the night we had a dirty toy party, he was in heaven. It must have been the best time for him. I've accidentally gotten some of his blue mail that came from a catalog place that had certain types of movies. So what I did was I opened it and then I put them all out on the dining room and then I left and I did my errands. And I left him home with his mail. Just so you know what? Why not? But I think the most dramatic thing is I do have a friend whose significant other is not a believer. He's a very practical guy. He is a veteran. He's very matter of fact. This is, he thinks it's all interesting, but he doesn't believe. And one day he came down from going upstairs and using the bathroom, and he came down and he was shook. This is somebody who's seen battle, and he's shook. And we're like, what's the matter? And he said, someone touched me on the shoulder. Like I felt the hand squeeze my shoulder. I'm never going upstairs in your house again. And he hasn't since. And that was like 2 years ago. And he felt it. He says, it was a real person. It felt like a real person that just kind of grabbed me. And he says it wasn't hostile. Because Henry's not a hostile guy. But he might have said, hey, guy, just, hey, man. And
I'm surprised it was his shoulder.
He did say he was using the facilities at the time. That may have been part of. Like, look, okay, not when they're in the toilet, hun. Just don't. But it is funny because ever since then, he won't even really come in past the kitchen. And I feel bad because I don't think it would be. I feel like I know Henry now because I live my life with the present. And hauntings are not 24/7, 365 constant activity. If they were, everyone who had a haunting would be out of their minds because they'd need a break. It comes and goes. It ebbs and flows. I'm sure there are other people that get visits and whatnot. But I think that I've never experienced anything hostile or threatening. Exactly the opposite, really. So I guess, try not to scare them too much.
Lucky, how do you celebrate or acknowledge Halloween? What's your perfect Halloween?
Well, I don't stop celebrating for one. Somebody's like, yay, it's Halloween season. I can put up the spooky stuff. I'm like, dude, was I supposed to take it down? It's like at a house full of, I literally have skeletons in my closet, Miss Amber. I do. We talked about, I make human bone jewelry. So I have lots of unusual supplies.
Oh.
That is phalanges. That is actually, I'm wearing that piece around my neck. That is a cervical vertebrae, likely about a C3. And that's a piece of Colorado red jade. That's turquoise. That's another cervical vertebra. Again, roughly C3-ish. That is a bone from the wrist. That's a carpal bone set in resin. And that's an interesting piece. That's an atlas vertebrae. You have your first two cervical vertebrae are your atlas and your axis. And they actually fit together. That's the larger of the two. And the first one, that's what holds up your skull.
Where do you get your bones?
That was the last lady got a little too nosy. Just kidding. I work in the medical field and anybody can get bones. You can get them. I can get them. We all can get them, except for in 3 states, they are legal to buy, sell, and trade. In Georgia and Tennessee, they can't leave or enter the states, in-state trading only. And in Louisiana, it's no way, no how. It's not legal to own, buy, sell, possess, have, use, no.
That's interesting.
Well, I think they got a bit of a voodoo problem down there. It's all I'm saying.
That could be.
That could be part of it.
Oh, Rocky, thank you so much for joining us and allowing us to be a part of your Halloween season. And I hope to talk again sometime. And Henry, if you're listening, come visit me sometime.
Oh, you'll know him by the smell of the breakfast. There's a little 6-inch door jamb in between the dining room and the kitchen. And sometimes just in that 6 inches as you pass through, you will smell a breakfast that'll make you cry.
Oh,
And I know
bring
that
it
must
on,
have been where,
Henry.
yeah. Oh, I know. I mean, I'm telling you, I've gone to IHOP more times because of him.
Happy Halloween, Rocky.
And
Thank
happy
you so
Halloween
much.
to you and all of your listeners. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.